Senator Bartlett.
Thank you, Madam Acting Deputy President, and it's good to have the debate brought back to some basic facts and reality about what is happening on Manus Island and Nauru, and the reality of what people who are fleeing persecution, including in our region, are being put on the record. Because somehow or other we are continuing to get this fiction that these people are just trying to rort some non-existent system, when, as the perfect example of a textbook case of genocide happening right now in our region, people fleeing that. They're supposed to just stay there and die. That's this government's idea of what they consider so-called humane. Let's revisit the actual text of what we are discussing here today, a matter that is very much of public importance: the inhumanity and cruelty of Australia's offshore detention system. Not a single word from the coalition speakers today in any way sought to suggest that it is anything other than inhumane and cruel on Manus Island or Nauru, except for the extraordinary statement from Senator McDonald that these people are, and I quote, well treated. 8 of them have died. Whatever you say about the regime under John Howard and his Philip Ruddock and his successors, at least they managed to run an offshore detention regime that didn't involve people dying, people being murdered, people dying by blatant bureaucratic neglect, which this minister in this country has to take ultimate responsibility for. Now, as people know, I've only recently come back into this chamber, but it was a terrible feeling of deja vu listening to some of the nonsense from Senator McDonald in particular. Literally 20 years ago, when I first came here, the same lies were being said then, probably by the same speaker 20 years ago. And it's because those lies have been able to be repeated and take hold that these sorts of outrageous human rights abuses have continued to occur. This litany of lies still gets repeated today. It is not illegal to seek asylum. That is a simple fact, and to continue to assert otherwise is false. It is false to suggest anything other than the vast majority of people are clearly refugees, and that has been determined by our own grotesquely inadequate system of assessment on Manus Island and Nauru. It is totally false to say that Australia is the most generous country in the world when it comes to accepting refugees per capita. The same falsehood that was said 20 years ago. And yet we had the grand crowning lie today that somehow these people on Manus Island are, quote, well treated. Unbelievable. And the nonsense that somehow people have stopped drowning. I mean, what do you think happened to all of those Rohingya people, even before the genocide got put onto massive turbocharging by the Myanmar military? What do you think happened to them that were on those boats? Remember that? Those other countries in our region who followed Tony Abbott's lead and pushed them back out to sea. What do you think happened to them? They all just sort of went back home and sat in their lounge rooms and said, oh, well, we had a go and we missed out. There's clear evidence. I know they're not interested in anything other than the fairy tales that they've continued to try and perpetrate for political advantage on the Australian people. Clear evidence of thousands of people drowning in our region. But somehow or other that is not a matter of concern. The simple fact is, of course we can't assist every person who is fleeing extreme danger, but there are some people that we can help now, and we certainly should not be inflicting extra harm, extra suffering, extra cruelty on those people. And it does have to be said that those camps on Manus Island were reopened under the Labor government, and that was not, in another of the falsehoods Senator McDonald said, with the support of the Greens. It was clearly opposed by the Greens at the time, categorically and repeatedly So Senator McDonald perhaps hasn't been listening all that time, but I see he's back in the chamber. He's responding, so presumably he's heard me just this one time. So I can tell you it was not true. You are wrong. So now you can not repeat at least one falsehood. You can not repeat again. The simple fact is there is an opportunity right now, as was stated by another speaker. Hundreds of those people could be in New Zealand right now, and should be. Let's also not forget, in amongst all that history over the last 20 years, that there was a significant shift due to public pressure, community pressure, groups like Rural Australians for Refugees, so many other people in the community and some people back then in the Liberal Party who pressured the Howard government to change its policy, to bring those refugees here from Nauru, some of whom are now citizens, as others have said in this debate, have built strong lives in this country and are contributing effectively to this country. This position can be changed again, and I know community sentiment is shifting to stop this cruelty now.